When I was a little boy, my life was very good. But I remember there was this one day I woke up really early in the morning and I just wasn't feeling good. I had a headache, I felt stuffy, I even had a little bit of a sore throat. My mom knew it was just a cold, but even though it was just a cold, we had no medicine in the house. And though I would have liked her to go to the drugstore to get me something for my headache or sore throat, when I was a little boy, there were no drugstores that were open at 6 o'clock in the morning. If you were sick at 6 o'clock in the morning, there was nothing you could do because all the stores were closed. They opened at 9 and they closed at 5. So if you were sick at 6 in the morning, there was nothing you could do. When I was a little boy, one of my favorite memories was playing with my friends after school. And in the springtime, as weather got warmer, we would play and play and play, and we would play as long as we could until it got dark. And my favorite thing to do after we were done playing was to come inside and eat some ice cream. Ice cream was my favorite food then, and it's still my favorite food today. But I remember this one time, I was playing with my two best friends, we had a great time, and we came into the house and I opened the freezer, and there was no ice cream. And I was shocked, but I asked my mom, could we go get some ice cream? And she said, Eric, I would love to get you some ice cream, but all the grocery stores close at 5 o'clock, and it's already 6:30. So as much as I'd like to get you ice cream, there are no ice cream stores that are open. So you'll have to wait until tomorrow when they open at 9 o'clock. With no way to get medicine and no way to get ice cream, my life and the lives of many others were in serious jeopardy. But then somebody had the crazy idea that if you opened a store at 7 in the morning and closed it at 11 in the evening, your store might be the only store that's open. And since your store was the only store that's open, everybody would come. Since I was already quite muddy, I decided to walk along the stream, check out more skunk cabbage, and think about how being early helps the skunk cabbage survive. If it wasn't for all these bugs around the skunk cabbage, it might actually be enjoyable. And as I noticed so many skunk cabbage plants, I started to realize that I wasn't seeing any skunk cabbage flowers. With all the other plants having their flowers out this time of year, I started to wonder, where are the skunk cabbage flowers? And there it was, hiding under the plant. A little bit of brown, and underneath that little bit of brown is the ovary or fruit of a skunk cabbage flower. If the skunk cabbage fruit is here now, that must mean the skunk cabbage fruit has been growing for some time. And if the skunk cabbage fruit has been growing for some time, that must mean the skunk cabbage flower was blooming a few months ago. And a few months ago, there weren't any plants at all growing in this forest. Or at least they were all sleeping. If the skunk cabbage flower was out before all the other flowers, that must mean that the skunk cabbage flower is also an early bird. A long time ago, the weather was cold, just like it usually is in February where we live. All of the bees, ants, flies, spiders, and butterflies were still flying around in warmer climates. Or they were deep in a hibernation sleep, either sleeping in the ground, under some leaves, in a nest, or for some of them, crawling around the bottom of rivers. So the winter was cold, and all the green plants were hiding, and all the insects were sleeping or on vacation somewhere else. But then came a day, much to everyone's surprise, that was much warmer than your typical winter day. And since it was one of those rare nice days in winter, I decided to go for a walk. The temperature says it's spring, but the trees say that it's still winter. And unlike spring, the only leaves on the trees were dead ones left over from last year. And on the ground, moss and Christmas tree ferns, nothing with a flower or nectar. So while I was enjoying this beautiful winter day, I wasn't the only one who decided to wake up and start moving outside. So when the first fly of the season woke up, there was nothing for it to eat. The little fly thought to itself, "I'm hungry. Where can I find some nectar? Is there a 7-Eleven around here somewhere?" Not only was the fly hungry, it was also cold. As it felt hungry, it decided it needed to fly around and see if it could find some food. Unfortunately, the fly could only see the kinds of things that I saw, and all I could see was moss growing on the rocks. And unfortunately, moss doesn't have any flowers. There didn't appear to be anything for the fly to eat. The fly was getting colder, and the fly was getting hungrier. But then, as the fly looked around, it smelled something. It didn't see anything that went with that smell, but like all insect, it decided to move closer to the smell. As it crawled or flew towards the smell, it saw some bumps coming out of the ground. It moved closer to the bumps, and the smell got stronger. As it got closer, those bumps started to look bigger, almost like little shelters. Not only were the shelters nice and stinky, just the way the flies like them, but the shelters also seemed to be having some kind of heat coming out of them. And with a stinky smell to make it happy and heat to keep it warm, the only thing left was for the fly to have some nectar. And sure enough, inside the flower was nectar for the fly to drink. Not only is the fly happy because it's now nice and warm and it got some nectar, the skunk cabbage plant is also really happy because the fly, as it was going to get that nectar and get warm, it rubbed up against one of the many anthers on the skunk cabbage flower. And when it rubbed up on that anther, just like any other flower, it got some pollen on its body. And now, when the fly leaves, it will go looking for another skunk cabbage flower, bring the pollen with it, drop that pollen on the stigma of another flower, and that other skunk cabbage flower will make skunk cabbage seeds. So my friends, I hope you enjoyed our exploration of skunk cabbage. The early bird gets the worm, the early leaves get the sunlight, the early pollinators get the nectar, and of course, the early flowers make seeds. By coming out early, the skunk cabbage has found an exciting and successful way to adapt to its environment, assure that it survives, and assure that it can make plenty of seeds so it'll have lots and lots of baby skunk cabbages, so there'll be skunk cabbage plants going for a very long time. The next time you smell something stinky, remember the skunk cabbage, and always remember, the early bird gets the worm.